Welcome to our viewers who is watching this show on replay. We are back this week with our guest speaker, Noori Siddique from Optimum Wellness, and we're continuing our discussion on emotional stress.
Hi, Gavin. Good evening to the viewers. Yes, welcome to our viewers tonight. This is our episode 2 of Emotional Stress. Our special guest tonight is Noori Siddique. And last week we started our conversation on emotional stress. And as we can just recap on that, Gavin, we were talking about what is emotional stress? And the reason why we started talking about this topic is that I discovered Noori's product while I was playing golf because I suffer from a bit of anxiety, as you know. I mean, you, of course, don't have any anxiety problems because you're forever hiking, or currently you are up in the beautiful
Johannesburg. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know my stress levels. I've got this watch here and it actually monitors my stress levels, and mine is like 30 at the moment, which is actually indicates very low stress levels. So, yeah, my stress levels are not very high right now.
How do you monitor it? Because I think if I put that monitor on me, it's definitely not going to be 30. It's going to add a couple of noughts.
Yeah, no, we should definitely test it on you, Charlene. But yeah, I mean, my secret is, I wake up in the mornings, as I said last time when we discussed with Noori, I do my morning gratitude and my breathing exercises and all of that. And yeah, I just enjoy it. So, so Noori, how are you?
Good evening.
How
I've had
are
an
you? We
interesting
just,
day.
no
I've had a
problem.
good
No,
day for managing my emotional stress.
Oh, there we go. There we go. We were actually just recapping between Charlene and I, just testing each other and seeing if we can still remember what we learned from you from last week. And we're just discussing our different emotional stress levels. And I think we've come to a realization that mine is at the minute pretty low, and Charlene is sort of managing hers. So
Fantastic.
there we go.
Lovely. Something
All
happened with
right.
my laptop. I'm only able to speak with you from my phone. Is the reception and everything clear enough?
100%.
Yes,
We can hear
I
you.
can hear you quite well.
Lovely. Wonderful.
All right.
Great.
Shall we run the intro, Charlene, or do you want to get straight into it?
No, let's get the show on the road. And
All right, let's get the show. Noori Siddique is in the house. Welcome to the Let's Talk show.
Well, yeah, welcome. There we go.
Right.
We're back in action. Fantastic. Thanks for that, Gavin. And as we were talking before you came on, Noori, we were talking about last week's program that was all about emotional stress. And the reason that we decided on this topic for the viewers is that I found your product while I was playing golf, and I've done a bit of research on everything you shared with us last week. As you know, as that reason is that like I say, like I found the product, and emotional stress is, it's important that we talk about these kind of issues, and it's not something that we should hide and not talk about it, saying that, oh, I don't suffer from anxiety or depression or irritability, all those things that you identified for us, and which we're going to go into a little bit more tonight. And one of the things I found that I also would like to talk about later on is the effect that stress has on, especially as women, on wrinkles. And as as I was going downstairs, my daughter's making dinner, and I can't wait because we are experimenting on the new talk show for my herbs. And I said to her, Liz, you're only 17, but you got to get onto this goal because stress creates wrinkles. And she laughed and she just grabbed this from me. She said, give it to me. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Now, vanity starts at all ages.
Oh, it does. It starts very young. That's us women.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. So would you like me to start with that?
Yeah, let's talk
Yes,
about,
please.
Yes.
identifying again what is emotional stress. We talked about
Yes.
how do we identify it, the depression as we carry on. What are the identification things that we need to identify?
Yeah.
We are suffering from emotional stress, and I think that's what we need tonight to come to a conclusion, say to our viewers, do you suffer from emotional stress? And I think that is the homework we are going to have to give our viewers for next week.
Yes. Well,
to
stress
you,
actually
Noori.
is your stress is actually your reaction, and your reaction will cause an action in the body that will affect your entire hormonal system. So we get to learn as we get older that we will be as happy or as unhappy as our hormones are. And that if we try to ignore them, they'll keep reminding us that they're there. And the most important one is actually cortisol. Because when we have a stress reaction, which is known as fight and flight, what actually happens is the body is over releasing cortisol. And this is causing all our body systems to go into a semi state of panic, or what would otherwise be known as chaos. And it's interesting that if you go into the meaning of the word stress in different languages, the Greek word for stress actually means chaos. And other words that are used means crisis. And if you go to India, they don't say stress, they say tension. So it's very, very interesting how people describe stress because it actually relays how impactful and how damaging it is on the body. So it's the number one cause of aging, it's the number one cause of disease, and it's the number one cause of death. And it has a lot to do with our happiness and our ability to choose to be happy. So when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel hopeless, when we feel desperate, anxious, depressed, then all of these are biologically affecting every single cell in our body. And then as we go through life and we have different experiences that cause us to store trauma, then that trauma that's stored in the body is now manifesting itself as an ongoing stress that will go on to create things like diabetes, like cancer, maybe losing your hair, maybe getting wrinkles, maybe your eyesight gets weaker. There's lots of things that it's like a silent creeper, and it will creep into wherever your weaknesses are. So the well-being in the body, if you just look at your face, if you actually frown and you keep that constant state of anxiety, upset, irritation, then eventually that frown almost becomes a permanent look. And if you don't smile enough, you might find that you're not using your smiling muscles. And as you age, that your mouth actually droops and drops to the side, and your jaw drops. So you get like hanging cheeks here. And so this is showing you that even your ability to laugh, to be happy, to have a joyful look on your face, to be bright, to be optimistic, to enjoy fresh air, to do exercise, are all different ways that impact positively on what you end up looking like. And it's interesting that even people that smoke, then you find that as they get older, they get these horrible wrinkles that come up around their mouth because they're continuously pouting. But more so is that one cigarette uses up your whole daily allowance of vitamin C. And vitamin C in the body is not only used to repair the damage of stress, but it's also used to help the body to make collagen. So every cigarette causes stress in the body and causes you to age faster, and will cause you to sabotage your body's natural ability to make collagen to keep you looking younger and firmer. So those are other stress factors. But emotional stress might be causing you to smoke. So this is where the emotional stress comes in, because through the emotional stress, we then become addicts. And in our addictions, doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs. It can be that we're addicted to anger. We're addicted to being a rescuer in a relationship. We're addicted to being a victim in our own lives. We're addicted to being a people pleaser. But ultimately, these are imbalances in our body where our self-worth is and our self-esteem is being sabotaged. And so at another level, which is the mind, body, spirit, we are living in another state of stress, which of course is causing aging as well. And if you look at our youngsters today, the amount of stresses that they're actually going through, from their relationship with their peers, to their relationship with their parents, to their competitiveness. And then, of course, many of them might be addicted to junk, or they're eating food that they're allergic to, like sugar and white flour, that causes them to end up with polycystic ovarian or insulin resistance, and to gain weight where they're not even overeating, but because of the imbalance of the body's ability to balance the blood sugar, whatever they do eat turns into fat, and they end up with belly fat that they can't get rid of. If they're allergic to white flour, another biological stress on the body, where they get pimples on their arms, which is an indication of gluten intolerance. They're like little white pimples, but you'll see that the bodies actually start storing fat, even though they hardly seem to be eating anything. But the presence of white flour in their body is actually causing that to occur. And this is all relevant because it goes back to emotional stress. Now they're depressed, now they feel ugly, now they feel unattractive, then they get teased at school, they can't wear clothes that they want, they feel embarrassed when they have to do sport. And so these are all ways that, the whole balance of emotional, biological, physical, and spiritual well-being are so important in the body. So emotional stress is 80% of everything. It will be the cause and the effect of everything that happens negatively to you, but it could also be the cause and the effect in a positive way if you learn to manage your stress positively.
And Noori,
So,
sorry if I can
yes.
jump in here. Obviously, also now with the times that we are in with COVID and all of that, have you noticed a remarkable increase in clients coming to you with emotional stress, with different issues in that? Because I'm sure it
Yes,
must have been
it's
elevated for a
also,
lot of people.
you see, what lockdown did was it forced people to go inward, because what we do in our lives is we constantly fill our time up with distractions, whether we're looking at our phones, whether we're running around, whether we're in restaurants, going for entertainment, going for conferences, workshops, traveling, and whatever the case is, but we're constantly finding ways to distract and to be on the move, almost as if we're constantly running away from something. And that something is actually our inner beingness and being present with ourselves, and also being able to be present with our loved ones. So in lockdown, what happened was that people were now suddenly forced to look at themselves, suddenly forced to look at the relationships that were going on around them, and had a harsh wake up call as to how many things that they were doing that were unnecessary, that caused them to neglect themselves and neglect their loved ones, and how many broken relationships they have, or damaged relationships, or neglected relationships, or divorces, or troubled teenagers, or poor performance at work, because their life was so out of balance. And so I think if people are looking for answers and they're willing to be honest with themselves, then COVID was a very positive experience in many ways. But of course, the financial stress for many people is something that's overwhelming. And if if your home is under threat, if your children's fees can't be paid, if you can't put food on the table, that's another stress level altogether. That's not the kind of stress that we're talking about today, because that level of trauma is beyond our imagination. Do you know anybody who's been in that situation? that is losing
Me,
their home, losing their school, children, taking their children out of school?
I don't know, Charlene, you might want to comment on this one.
Have you come across anybody in your circle that's come across that kind of stress, where they've lost their business, or they can't send their children to school?
You're talking about children especially, and my daughter being 17, it's become quite a topic of discussion about how many of the teenagers are actually getting depressed. And the last year of COVID, and even the effect that COVID have had on children having to study at home, the sporty kids that can't go and compete, they can't have the normal cultural activities, social engagements. That's why most kids don't do homeschooling. Even my son, that is someone that can cope studying at home, and he's doing his online LLB now. Even he says he's struggling as a person that normally copes with self-studying. He's struggling to cope. Fortunately, he goes out and he does activities and plays golf and that, but it is becoming quite a problem. They are talking now today again. My daughter came home and said, it looks like more of the sporting activities are going to be cancelled. And my daughter, not being someone that gets stressed easily, I can see immediately, just being told that there's not going to be so much sport, because obviously there's a rise in numbers. I could immediately see there's a different level of stress that's affecting her. But how are we going?
It's so interesting. Yes. It's such an important topic that you brought up there, Charlene, because if you look at our normal cognitive development as children growing up and becoming teenagers, where we're finding our identity, we're finding our place in the world, we do that through sport, through competitiveness, through academic achievement, and all of that through social engagement and identity with that social engagement. So that means that a lot of the natural progressive growth in a child is being inhibited through that absence of social engagement. And there's a hormone that we release in our body called oxytocin. And oxytocin is cutely known as the hugging hormone. And something that teenagers love doing is actually hugging each other and feeling that closeness, feeling that warmth, and maybe hugging their grandma, hugging their aunties. All of these things have been sabotaged to a point. So the stimulation of the happy hormone that releases positive stress response in the body has actually been suppressed by this absence of social engagement. So it's a very real problem, and it's a very real problem that can lead to depression and maybe even worse. So it means that we've, as parents and as family members, need to develop a lot of social skills in order to be able to be reassuring, to recognize their feelings, to not dismiss them, to find ways of being creative around that. We're now possibly going into another COVID phase 3, and who knows what the level of isolation that's going to lead to at the moment. So at least for another year, we've got to find coping skills for all of this. So how to do this, I'm sure many of you have explored, but the aspect of the family coming together, the family being supported, the other side of it is that with our youngsters today, their friends have become everything, and their parents are kind of like, yeah, whatever, mum. And so, in other words, the friends were giving too much focus, too much influence, and that's not always a positive thing. So the other way around is the opportunity for family bonding, for family communication, for family, re-establishing relationships, and each of you finding a new place in the family that perhaps wasn't there before, and being creative within that. So how do you feel about that, Charlene?
I absolutely agree with you on the family connections, interactive. But the first thing that comes to my mind is, do families still have the skills to be able to do that? to
That's
be able.
why, yes, that's why we're having the topics like this being discussed in this platform, is because, you know, we only, as human beings, we are only here for growth. So if we are stuck in the paradigm of how our parents brought us up, the age that we grew up in as 50, 60-year-olds today is not, it's not one generation apart from our children. It's almost like 3 generations, because technology is like swiped through. And you know, like I was looking at when Prince Philip's funeral took place, and they were talking about his life being 99 years of age, and how when he started there weren't TVs, there weren't aeroplanes, there, you know, I mean, from where to where did he not go in his 99 years? To see the advancement in technology, cell phones, computers, Facebook, Google, social media, and how all of this is impacting, to the point that as parents, it's very difficult for us to maintain a healthy relationship with the children when they've got so many other influencing factors. So grounding them and enabling you to develop skills yourself. So now that we're so dependent on these computers and these devices, I myself watch self-development videos every day. I watch Eckhart Tolle. I'd watch Dr. Mate, Meate. If you Google Dr. Mate, and he talks about emotional addictions. And as parents, we also have a lot of emotional addictions towards our children, which are very unhealthy, that makes us toxic parents. And then to look at the aspects of toxic parenting, to look at the principles that can be applied in how to communicate, react, and respond with a child. Because we've got to a point now where in many homes it's almost as if the children start parenting the parents, and the parents don't have much of a say anymore. And when the child says jump, the mother must say how high. So we've kind of gone from one extreme to the other, where children should be seen and not heard, to children talk and the parent must shut up. So I don't know if you're identifying with what I'm saying.
No, can't see that happening in the Charlene household.
I'm very, very blessed.
I'm actually very grateful. I'm very grateful not to be bringing up children today. Because you see, there's so many paradigms that these children are exposed to. You don't even know who's in your house. When they're lying on the bed with that cell phone in front of them, whoever's talking to them, whatever they're listening to, whatever they're watching, is going into them, and it's programming them to being something completely separate from who you think you have in your home. So they're lying on the bed, maybe talking to 3 or 4 people. You think the child is lying on the bed on their own, but figuratively speaking, they've got 3 or 4 other people in bed with them that are all wiring their conditioning and all affecting their feelings, their thoughts, their hormones, whether they're happy, whether they're depressed, whether they feel ugly, whether they feel pretty. And it's nothing to do with you. And then you have to deal with whatever they dump on you. Mind-blowing, isn't it?
Sure.
Absolutely. It's interesting that we're talking about this topic. My daughter's got an oral for tomorrow, and she had an open topic, and she picked the topic on the generational change. And exactly what you're saying is what exactly, it's like you're repeating a whole speech for tomorrow. And it's about also, you know, the generational change. But her way of looking at it is we that introduced all of this fourth industrial revolution stuff, all the technology, we're the ones that gave it to them. So how can we blame them or them blame us, because we introduced it to them? So it's going to be interesting to, from her point of view, to actually be able to continue this conversation at some stage with you as well. I would love to bring it into the panel, because I think we have touched something very important here, where we're sitting with a generation of youngsters, the Gen Zs, those ones that we all know when with the Gen Zs and the Gen Ys, and what is happening to them with emotional stress? How are they coping with it? And yeah, like I say, I'm definitely going to give my daughter some additional collagen because she's a girl, and with stress and vitamin C and all the information that you're sharing, it's vitally important that we start giving the right supplements to these, of course, to ourselves as well. But I mean, look at this. There's no stress on this face.
Yeah.
You made me worried then, Noori. I've got the permanent
I just want to add something to what you said there. You know, I've recently moved from Durban down to Hout Bay, but in Durban, I used to sit on the beachfront a lot and watch the girls in their bikinis. And I would see young girls, they're 16, 17, 18, but they've already got stretch marks on their body. And those stretch marks actually show, and they've got cellulite. Now, cellulite is actually a lack of collagen in connective tissue. And stretch marks also show that they have a lack of elastin in their skin, which is also directly linked to vitamin C and collagen. So if you look at the diets of these girls, they are, you know, some of them go on these cucumber diets and funny things, you know, where they think they can live on fresh air, but they're actually making themselves malnourished, and they'll starve themselves to a point just to be a size 8 or something equivalent. So if they want to be a size 8, good for them, but make sure they're putting the right supplements in, because if you see they've got stretch marks and they've got cellulite, they're definitely lacking in collagen. Then that will affect their hair, it will affect their skin, it will affect their teeth, it will affect their nails and the firmness of their body. They'll even find that, you know, the breast tissue, for example, will become very weak. So all of these things need to be taken care of.
Wow, this is valuable information you're sharing tonight. And if my daughter could hear us now, she is so going to grab this bottle for herself. I'm not going to see this. It's my
Charlene, if you can tell us what you've got there, what you're referring to, what product do you have there of Noori that we can maybe share with some of our viewers here?
Collagen. Miracle Collagen is called Miracle Collagen because miracles happen. And the first thing is that it's got 2,000 milligrams of glutamine in it with 10,000 milligrams of hydrolyzed collagen that you take 4 teaspoons and you mix it into a glass of water. Now, what happens when you do that is that it actually enables you to start repairing the gut. And from our teenagers to the elderly to sports people, no matter how fit and strong, all of us seem to be suffering with gut problems today. And we might feel bloated, we feel tired, we've got acid reflux, our colon isn't regular, so we've got irritable bowel, spastic colon. So making sure the gut is healthy is very, very important. So that's a deliberate formula put together with the collagen and the glutamine to ensure that the gut is healthy, and with that it will ensure the absorption of collagen. And in your bodies, you're made up of 30% protein, of which 90% of that protein is collagen. And proteins, remember, are made up of amino acids. And the amino acids that are present in collagen is specifically high with glycine. And that is very, very important. That came to my attention because young or old, many people don't sleep well. And if you have the 4 teaspoons of powder in a glass of water an hour or 2 before bedtime, it relaxes the muscle tissue, relaxes the body, so that when you go to sleep, you actually sleep very well. And if you don't sleep well, you don't heal. So one of the reasons why we get very stressed is because we actually don't sleep very well. If you do a survey in a room full of 30 people and ask them how many of you have a good night's sleep, you might find that 50% only put their hands up. So sleeping is a very big issue. And because our habits today are conducive to not sleeping well, like, for example, we're not supposed to be eating food after dark. Because when the sun goes down, the digestive fire in the stomach has gone out. In other words, our digestive system has switched off. So if we eat a meal at 8 o'clock at night, then it sits heavy in our stomach and stresses the body because our digestive time is actually over for the day, but we're still eating. Then you compound that with sitting in front of the phone. Maybe it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. You're still looking at this phone. And the result of that will be is that you're exposing yourself a lot to the light that's coming from the phone. That's affecting the brain waves. And the way that it's affecting your brain means that when you do want to sleep, the mind is still restless because it hasn't relaxed from you looking at the phone. So you need to put the phone down at least half an hour to an hour before you sleep and meditate, have a shower, pray if you want to, but do something that's relaxing, do some yoga stretches, whatever you feel like doing that will relax you ready for bedtime. But going to bed should be a ceremony where you prepare to go to bed. You don't just go to bed. And then you go there in a restful state, in a calm state where you're likely to fall asleep.
Wow.
Teenagers are not doing that.
They're not doing that. They're not doing that.
No.
They're falling asleep. And you take the phone away from them because they fell asleep with the phone. So we've got lots to talk about, but we've run out of time again.
It's a really hard one, but if I had children now, I would be saying after 8 o'clock, no phone, and I'd lock them away in a safe. That's what I would do.
Wow. I second that. Yeah.
When you give them the phone from day one, if you make a rule in the house and you stick to it, you see, also when you discipline children, they interpret it that mummy cares or daddy cares. Yeah. If you don't discipline them, they're like, whatever, I can do what I like. Mummy's easy. She's not really bothered about me. It's a very, very interesting, deep psychological thing that if you don't discipline the children, you don't set boundaries. Because if you look at the way that we were grown up as children, discipline, being grateful, paying attention, following instructions was the whole point of them growing us up. Now, them listening to us, paying attention and following instructions is something that none of them really take seriously. So our whole parenting skills have gone out the window, and then we wonder why we've got uncontrollable teenagers in the home, that we're not being respected the way that we think we should be, and that our whole rapport with our children is almost as if we're on the defensive while they remain on the offensive.
That's true. It's true what you're saying.
So they've got a serious attitude problem that we've allowed them to get away with. So we have to. So this is where our parenting skills come in, because we haven't set boundaries. Now, if they need to study, if they need to go to university, if they need to get a job, if they need to be in a happy relationship, these are all skills that they need to learn. Otherwise, every aspect of their lives is going to be hindered. It's not just about you bringing up a child.
That's very true. But it's been wonderful. We've got so much next time to talk about. And I think tonight has been a great breakthrough again. I'm even more excited now to be more diligent. I've taken mine tonight. My fingers are feeling a lot better. You can see
really?
Yeah, it's not so sore anymore. I can actually touch them.
Nice.
And the wrinkles are going away.
What's happening? Really? Oh, wow. I told you last week you'll look 10 years younger.
Noori, thank you very much for your time once again. It's always a pleasure. I mean, I'm just sitting here learning so much. I mean, you're an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I know the viewers that we are going to be posting this out to all the social media platforms. They definitely will get value from this. And I'm going to make sure that everybody that watches this stream and this on replay, to please make sure, folks, if you've got any questions for Noori for our next discussion, please make sure to put it on the Facebook groups and on YouTube, and then we'll make sure to bring that up. So Noori, thank you very much once again for your time. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity. Take care. And take it easy.
Take it easy. 100%.
Thank you, everyone, and good night. We'll be back next week, same time. Bye-bye.
All right. A great evening, ladies. Take care. Bye-bye.